No matter how you sugarcoat it, no matter she was depressed, she was this, she was that, doesn't make up for the fact that I took 2 innocent people's lives that were my babies.
Imagine a mother, a nurse, caring for others by day and raising 2 young children by night, someone you would trust with your life. Now imagine that same mother turning on her own children in a single, unthinkable night. This is the shocking story of Christina Riggs, a young woman whose life spiraled into a tragedy that would horrify Arkansas and the entire nation. Her son, Justin Thomas, was just 5 years old. Her daughter, Shelby Alexis Riggs, only 2. In one night, their lives were stolen, and Christina herself tried to end her own. Sit back as we take you deep inside Christina Riggs' life, from her troubled past to the horrifying events of November 4, 1997, and the legal and emotional aftermath that followed. It's a story of despair, mental illness, and heartbreaking loss. A story that forces us to confront the fragility of the human mind and the devastating consequences of a single tragic decision. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with fellow true crime fans, comment your thoughts below, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell for more chilling and fascinating true crime stories. You won't want to miss the details of this case as we explore every angle of Christina Riggs' life and the lives she took. Christina Marie Riggs entered the world on September 2, 1971, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Born into a home that looked ordinary from the outside, but behind closed doors carried the kind of emotional turbulence that quietly shapes a child's entire future. Long before Christina became a nurse, long before she became a mother, and long before the devastating events that would shock the country, she was just a young girl trying to survive the instability she was raised in. Her childhood was marked by constant emotional chaos. Family mental health struggles, inconsistent parenting, and a household overshadowed by tension created an environment where Christina learned early that comfort and safety were not guaranteed. She grew up feeling unseen, unheard, and often overwhelmed. Those who knew her as a child described her as quiet, withdrawn, and painfully insecure, traits that would later evolve into chronic depression and lifelong feelings of inadequacy. By the time Christina reached her teenage years, the emotional cracks were widening. She struggled with self-worth, with the pressure of growing up too quickly, and with feeling responsible for burdens far beyond her age. And then, at just 16 years old, her life took a life-altering turn. Christina became pregnant. Still a child herself, she faced a decision that no teenager should have to make. Unable to care for a baby and pressured by the reality of her situation, she gave birth and then gave the child up for adoption. On the outside, it was a solution, but on the inside, it was a wound that would never truly heal. That child's absence became a quiet ache she carried into adulthood, a reminder of loss, regret, and the fear of failing again. Imagine being 16, already battling depression, already carrying the weight of childhood trauma, and then having to give up your firstborn. What does that do to a young mind? How deep does that pain go? And how much does that kind of unresolved grief shape every choice a person makes later in life? These are the questions that linger when looking at Christina's early years. She learned early how to hide her feelings behind a calm face, how to smile through breaking points, and how to function even while she was crumbling inside. Her childhood wasn't just unstable, it was the silent beginning of a downward emotional spiral that no one around her fully recognized or understood. And this unresolved trauma, these early wounds, would follow Christina into relationships, into motherhood, into her career, and ultimately, into the darkest chapter of her life. Looking at Christina's early years now, do you believe her childhood environment played a role in what she would later become? Do you think early emotional trauma can change the trajectory of someone's entire life? Let me know in the comments how much you think childhood upbringing influences adult decisions, because in this case, Christina's past wasn't just a chapter, it was the foundation of everything that followed. As Christina moved into adulthood, she tried desperately to build a life that looked nothing like the unstable childhood she had come from. After high school, she poured herself into a career in nursing, one of the few places where she felt she had purpose, structure, and the ability to help others in ways she wished someone had helped her. Becoming a licensed practical nurse gave Christina a sense of identity she had never experienced before. She worked long, demanding hours at Arkansas Children's Hospital, a place where innocence and tragedy coexist daily. Colleagues described her as competent and dependable, someone who handled emergencies with calm professionalism, but behind that calm exterior was a woman who was often overwhelmed, stretched thin, and emotionally exhausted. During this period, Christina married John J. Riggs. Their relationship was far from a fairy tale, but it represented stability, something Christina had craved since childhood. Not long into the marriage, she gave birth to her son, Justin Thomas, in 1992, followed by her daughter, Shelby Alexis, in 1995. To the outside world, Christina seemed to be building the family she always wanted: 2 beautiful children, a stable job, and a husband at home. But beneath the surface, the cracks were already forming. The marriage was strained, weighed down by emotional disconnect, financial stress, and Christina's growing mental health struggles. Eventually, the relationship collapsed, and Christina found herself alone again, this time as a single mother with 2 young children depending solely on her. Life as a single mom amplified every stress Christina was already battling. The long hours at the hospital, the late-night feedings, the daycare costs, the pressure to provide everything on her own. It all became a heavy, relentless burden. Some nights, after double shifts, she would come home physically drained, emotionally empty, and mentally overwhelmed. She was constantly juggling survival, caring for sick children at work only to return home and do the same for her own. Bit by bit, the stress began to wear her down. Depression deepened. Isolation grew. And the bright, hopeful future she once tried so hard to build seemed to be slipping further and further away. But here's the haunting question. How much pressure can one person hold before something breaks? How many warning signs go unnoticed when someone's entire life depends on pretending they're okay? And how many single parents watching this right now understand exactly what it feels like to smile through heartbreak, exhaustion, and silent battles? Let me know in the comments, because Christina's story forces us to look closely at the hidden struggles so many people experience in silence. As Christina's adult life continued to unravel, the mounting emotional, financial, and psychological pressure pushed her toward a devastating breaking point, one that would change her life and her children's lives forever. By the mid-1990s, Christina's mental health was deteriorating. She experienced severe depression and feelings of isolation. Her work as a nurse exposed her to trauma, including victims of the Oklahoma City bombing, which her family later cited as contributing to post-traumatic stress. Christina struggled to find emotional support, and her mother noted a history of mental health issues in the family. Alone with her 2 young children and the pressures of work, she sank deeper into despair. Friends and coworkers noticed changes: withdrawal, fatigue, and signs of emotional instability. These mental health challenges, combined with her past trauma and ongoing isolation, set the stage for the events that would follow. November 4, 1997. A date that would become one of the darkest in Arkansas history. As the sun set and the rest of the world settled into an ordinary night, Christina Riggs, nurse, mother, and a woman drowning in silent despair, made a decision that would shock the country and haunt everyone who later learned the details. She had spent days planning it. At Arkansas Children's Hospital, where she worked the night shift, she quietly took medications that were never meant to leave the building. Among them was potassium chloride, a drug known for causing a rapid, agonizing cardiac arrest when pushed into a vein. Ironically, the same drug used in state executions. She also slipped out morphine, a powerful sedative. Back at home, she had access to amitriptyline, better known by its brand name Elavil, an antidepressant she was prescribed but would soon use on her children. That evening, after tucking 5-year-old Justin Thomas and 2-year-old Shelby Alexis into bed, Christina walked into their room with the medications hidden in her hands. What happened next is almost impossible to comprehend. She first injected Justin with potassium chloride. The burning sensation caused him to cry out in pain, something Christina later admitted she did not expect. In panic, she reached instead for the vial of morphine, drawing it into a syringe and injecting it to silence his suffering. Justin's little body relaxed, then went still. Next was baby Shelby. Christina crushed and administered Elavil, the antidepressant, hoping the sedative effect would take hold. But Elavil was slow-acting in children, and Shelby fought for breath, confused and terrified. When the drugs didn't work fast enough, Christina did something unthinkable. She placed a pillow over her daughter's face and smothered her. And then she did the same to Justin, to make sure both children were gone. In the silence that followed, Christina wrote letters. Apology letters. Goodbye letters. Letters explaining that she believed her children were better off dead than living a life she feared she could no longer provide. And then she turned the drugs on herself. She swallowed 28 tablets of Elavil, nearly an entire bottle, and injected herself with potassium chloride, the same drug that had just killed her son. The pain was unbearable. But the dose wasn't enough to stop her heart. Through the night she drifted in and out of consciousness. Her children lay lifeless in their beds. And Christina lay on the floor, waiting to die. The next morning, her mother arrived unexpectedly. What she saw when she entered the home was a scene no parent should ever witness. A daughter unconscious, barely breathing, and 2 grandchildren lying cold and still in their rooms. The horror of that moment set off a wave of shock that would spread across Arkansas, then the entire country. Police, medics, neighbors, reporters, everyone asked the same agonizing question. How could a mother do this? What kind of despair leads to a choice so final, so devastating, so irreversible? And now, I want to ask you the same thing. When you hear this part of the story, do you see a murderer? A broken woman? A mother lost in mental illness? Or a combination of all three? What do you think pushed Christina to cross a line from suffering to violence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this chapter is where the emotional weight of her story becomes almost unbearable. This was the night that changed everything. The night that transformed a struggling single mother into one of the most shocking cases in Arkansas criminal history, and set the legal and moral reckoning that would follow. Christina Riggs immediately confessed to the murders upon being discovered. Her defense argued that she suffered from severe depression and PTSD related to her work and personal life. Prosecutors countered that the murders were premeditated and calculated, citing the methodical steps she took to end her children's lives. In 1998, Christina Riggs was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. Her case went through appeals, but she chose to waive further legal challenges, effectively volunteering for execution. The Arkansas Supreme Court upheld her death sentence, confirming that the crime and its circumstances warranted the ultimate punishment under state law. While on death row, Christina Riggs remained quiet and remorseful. She expressed regret for her actions, stating publicly, "I'm sorry," and privately confessing, "There are no words to adequately express my remorse." She did not seek to prolong her life through appeals, instead accepting the consequences of her actions. Life on death row was marked by isolation and reflection, as she awaited the execution that she had effectively requested. Prison officials described her as cooperative but somber, fully aware of the gravity of her crimes and the irrevocable decisions she had made. On May 2, 2000, Christina Riggs was executed at the Cummins Unit in Arkansas. She was 28 years old and became the first woman executed in the state since 1845. Her last meal consisted of steak, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green peas, bread, and cherry Kool-Aid. In her final moments, she spoke only 2 words, "I'm sorry." Those words, brief and haunting, captured both her remorse and the tragic reality of a life and 2 children lost. As this story comes to a close, we are left with one of the most heartbreaking and haunting cases in true crime history, one that forces us to look beyond the headlines and confront the complicated, painful intersection of mental illness, isolation, and despair. The tragedy of Christina Riggs is not just the story of a crime, it is the story of a slow emotional collapse that ended with the loss of 2 innocent children, a mother's irreversible decision, and a family shattered in a way that time will never repair. Justin Thomas was only 5 years old. Shelby Alexis was just 2, a toddler who should have had her whole life ahead of her. And Christina, a woman consumed by depression, trauma, and overwhelming pressure, lost her own life in the aftermath. This case forces us to ask difficult questions, questions that linger long after the credits roll. How many people walk around every day carrying emotional pain that no one sees? How many mothers, fathers, caretakers, or single parents are silently drowning, feeling like they have nowhere to turn? And perhaps the hardest question of all, could this tragedy have been prevented if someone had recognized the signs, or if Christina had received the support she so desperately needed? Christina's story is a chilling reminder of the fragile boundaries of the human mind. It shows how untreated depression can distort reality, how loneliness can become lethal, and how a moment of despair can destroy not just one life, but an entire family. As we reflect on this tragedy, we honor the memories of Justin Thomas and Shelby Alexis, 2 children whose lives were cut short far too soon. Their story should never be forgotten. Their names should never fade. And if sharing their story encourages even one person to seek help, or inspires someone to reach out to a struggling friend, parent, or coworker, then perhaps some small measure of meaning can be found in the sorrow. Now I want to hear from you. What do you take from this case? Do you believe Christina was driven by untreated mental illness? Do you think society fails people who suffer in silence? And what can we, as a community, learn from this devastating story? Share your thoughts in the comments, because every discussion brings awareness and every voice matters. Thank you for watching this documentary. If this story moved you, please like the video, share it to spread awareness, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth true crime investigations. And above all, take care of yourselves and each other.